Hey, welcome back to Brighter Rays. We're looking at a study called Go to Joseph. And we're looking at Genesis 41, 38 through 57. And today we're looking at 53 through 57. So we're looking at the end of this chapter here. And we're going to see that Joseph is right again. We see in these closing verses that all that Joseph said would happen came true. God gave Joseph the message and Joseph delivered it. See, the ordering of events is in God's hands. He caused an amazing abundance of produce for 7 years, and then he brought the famine. You can see the progression of the famine in the words of these verses. Verse 54 says that the famine began to come. This was not a localized famine as just to Egypt, but it hits all lands. As we'll see in the next chapter, the land of Canaan is a part of the famine. When other areas were feeling the famine, Egypt was fine at first because, they still had their abundance. Perhaps the abundance was so great that the people themselves had stored up food. So the people at the beginning of the famine didn't really feel it because they still had abundance of their own. Because they only gave a fifth, not all that they had. They gave a fifth to the Pharaoh. And they had, if it was so immeasurable, the fifth was so immeasurable. You can think about, the other 4/5 that the people still possessed. They ate some, but they would have been storing some for themselves as well. So when the first hit, they were not, too bad. But when that ran out, then they became famished and the people cried out for food. Now there is this letter in historical writing from ancient Egypt from a man to his family that was written during a famine. Well, we can't know for certain if this is this famine, but he writes during a famine that happens in Egypt, and he described that the famine was so bad that the people resorted to cannibalism to stay alive. So that's how bad these famines can get. So when the famine had spread across Egypt, Joseph opened all the storehouses and began to sell the food that he had stored up. Now the famine did not just extend to the land of Egypt, but it reached far beyond, so much so that all the earth, it says, came to Egypt to Joseph to buy grain. The famine was so severe over all the earth that all these different people groups started coming to Egypt to get the food that they heard that Egypt had. Now it says that Joseph was a 30-year-old man when he came to power here. So he was 17 when he was in Canaan, now he's 30, so we're talking over a decade that he's been out of the land of Canaan. Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh, and he went through the land, it says, through all the land. Joseph accomplished what he was put in power to do. No doubt Joseph worked hard as he ensured that the entire kingdom saved the abundance. This was not just something that magically happened. He had to work. So he put the food in every city, and then when the famine reached its greatest, when it was raging across the land, he made sure that the right amount was distributed. They didn't just throw it open and say, hey, everyone, take whatever you want. There had to be rationing going on. When the people cried out to Pharaoh for bread, he told all the Egyptians, go to Joseph. What he says to you, do. That was the right answer because Joseph had prepared for this moment for over 7 years. And he had the answers to how to survive, how to rescue many, many people from death. And God had given him the answer, and God had responded properly. He responded obediently, and what God said came to pass. And what Joseph said came to pass. And we're going to see that he's able to save not only a bunch of different people groups, but he's even able to save his own family. And so we'll look at that actually in the next chapter. But for now, we're done with this chapter. Come back in the next video and we'll just have a conclusion here. We'll talk about what we've learned from this story.